Today, I'm going to tell you a story about a little boy. You see, this little boy loves collecting cool and unique rocks. So one day when this little boy is out playing, he stumbles upon this beautiful and shiny rock that's sticking out of the ground. So he starts digging away until he thought that enough of the rock was exposed to take it out. But when the little boy went to go and lift this rock out, that's when he discovered that he was incapable of lifting up this rock. So he ran to his dad and asked his dad, "Can you please help me? This rock is impossible for me to move, and I know that you can move it." Because this little boy had, let me rewind. So the dad walks over to the rock, he inspects the rock, and just picks it up with ease. And because this little boy had faith in his father that he could do this, the thing that he deemed impossible for him was made possible. And that's what I want to talk about today. Today is making the impossible possible by faith. Hebrews 11, starting verse 33, reads, "Who by faith conquered kingdoms, performed acts of righteousness, obtained promises, shut the mouths of lions, and quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, from weakness were made strong, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection, and others were tortured, not accepting their release, so they might obtain a better resurrection." I'm going to give 3 examples from Hebrews. My first example is David. When David was a young man, the king of the land was tricked into making a decree where if anyone prayed to God, that they'd be thrown into a den of lions. Daniel, being the faithful young man that he is, continued to pray to God despite the consequences. But when the king found out that he was tricked, it was too late because Daniel was already being thrown into the lion's den. You can imagine, you could probably think what Daniel was thinking. He's probably just thinking that, this is it, that it's over. And yet he still had faith in God that everything was going to be okay. And it was because through that faith, that God shut the mouths of those lions, make the impossible possible for David. My next example takes place in 1 Samuel 17, when Israel was going to war with the Philistines. The Philistines had put forth their mightiest warrior, a 9-foot tall giant that goes by the name of Goliath. Whereas Israel, they had their whole army, but it wasn't a soldier that went to war for them. It was a young shepherd boy by the name of David. David didn't have a suit of armor, or he wasn't wielding a sword. All that David had was the clothes that was on his back, a sling, a couple smooth stones, and a faith that could move mountains. And it was through that faith that David defeated Goliath. And it was through that faith that God made the impossible possible for David. My last example takes place in Daniel chapter 3, in the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, where King Nebuchadnezzar made this golden statue of himself and said, if anyone doesn't bow down and worship this statue of me, then I will throw you into this fiery furnace. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, these are 4 faithful young men who refused to bow down before this statue. So they were going to be thrown into this furnace. And I want you just to think for a moment how easy it would have been just to bow down before this statue and just to think of self-preservation. What these 3 men did was show the faith that they had in God. And it's because of that faith they had in God that God delivered them from the furnace and making the impossible possible. As you can see in my demonstrations, putting faith in God means that we can do impossible things. We're like the little boy from the story who's trying to pick up this this giant rock, which might represent divorce, losing a loved one, or whatever sin that you have in your life. On our own, we can't pick up this rock. Only by having faith in God, our Heavenly Father, can the rock be lifted. So have faith in God and pray like Daniel prayed. And take action like David took action. And have courage like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had courage. Because it is through that faith that God makes the impossible possible.